Alright. Okay, it's 7:34 on Thursday, July 11th. And this is the Architectural Preservation District Commission meeting. We will be recording the meeting and then it will be posted on the Lunenburg Public Access Channel within 24 hours. And we don't currently have any other members joining us via Zoom, and there's only the three commissioners in the room. Hopefully William Lloyd will be popping up on Zoom. He had indicated earlier that he was not available to participate in person, but he would join us via Zoom. The topics are listed on the agenda, which was posted on Monday, and if we have somebody from the public who joins us, hopefully they can join the discussion with meaningful input. There is no public comment because there's no members of the public with us. I'm gonna go ahead and ask for approval of the 13. Has anybody looked at the 13 June 2024 meeting minutes? I noticed one small change that needs to be made. He has ARPA, which is the federal funding program associated with COVID. He has that as HARPA, HARPA. So I will make sure that William knows that change needs to be made. Is there anything else?
There is in the my report for the historical commission.
Okay,
Do you have those? I can't get it on my phone.
the meeting minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on.
The last section.
Yeah. I'm gonna stop there in just a second to share with you, Richard. Oh, here's a note from Wayne. I just says it. Okay, so. The meeting minutes, huh? Is that here?
Yeah. So it's says historical preservation committee updates, historical commission update.
Okay,
It says 763 Main Street is under development delay. It's under demolition, under the demolition delay bylaw.
okay.
Building inspector negotiated with owner to separate the historic property from the rest of the land. So that it would be two different parcels.
Okay,
Allowing for the house to be preserved.
or anything else?
Dickerson's property is Dickinson, Ian.
Okay,
Cabin is undergoing demolition by neglect.
okay.
That's it.
Alrighty. So this is what I propose with regards to meeting minutes. We'll have a chance to read your transcript that you just sent out, Nathan. And then I'm gonna talk to William and have him make the proposed changes, and then we will vote on those sets of meeting minutes at our meeting in September.
Okay.
All right, let me,
Did no meeting in August?
or excuse me, August, I'm sorry. And that's actually on this proposed dates on our schedule. Hold on, I'm gonna do something here. Cause he may have. Cause when I replied back to you, Nathan, I think I just went back. Okay, so I just sent it via email back to Wayne. All right, so the other item on the agenda, correspondence, there was no written correspondence, but I wanted to share with commissioners. The conversation I had at the select board meeting. We had met just after there was debate and some confusion about whether Richard was gonna be appointed to the Architecture Preservation District Commission. So I went to the following select board meeting the following week. And basically said, please have William, appointed, which he was. But I also had a chance, Richard, I also had a chance to mention to the select board our concern about the Ritter Building in Town Hall. And everybody heard it, there was no response, other than Heather said something along the lines of, we know what their concerns are. We know that we have to put the project out for bid. But there was no specific deadline or date for when that's gonna happen, no real plan. And select boardman Tom Alonso did follow up and say, well, do we have any ideas on when the work's gonna start? And no response came back from the town manager. So I think that it's safe to say that, there's a fair amount of confusion and turmoil right now in town hall because of the departure of the current town manager. And I think that we're just gonna have to continue to watch it and make sure that more things don't get affected by the delay. The other thing that came up at that meeting was a suggestion by select boardman Michael Ray Jeffries that we meet with Cesar Nuzzello, the new chair for the select board. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up a time to meet with him, maybe for a cup of coffee. If you all have any concerns or any issues that you'd like for me to bring forward, let me know. And I'll let you know what the day is, and then you can have some time to think about what we want to discuss with him. But he has no real understanding of, I think, some of the controversy that the commission has been involved with, our desire to make sure that people can get their work reviewed quickly and so on and so forth. So that'll be one of the things that I try and get done before. I don't know if I can get it done before the August meeting, but clearly I'll get it done before the September meeting. He's busy too right now, because they've got a lot of things on their plate. I would not want to be a member of the select board at this point in time, between the task force, the interim town manager selection, and then the permanent town manager selection. They got a lot going on. Okay, so 1010 Massachusetts Avenue, the CTA, I distributed copies, electronic copies of that. And I am a little concerned that we don't have the property owner here. I was assured by Logan that he was going to show up. And I also asked.
So is Logan the property owner?
No, Logan is the new staff person, new administrative assistant for the land use department. And I think he works for Brian Gingers, and Brian's now he has additional responsibilities beyond being just the building commissioner. He's taken on some of the duties associated with land use. And Logan is working for him. The one thing that I was concerned about, and what I was hoping we would get from the property owner this evening, or from Logan, because I asked them to get just what the materials are, that they're gonna use on the addition. And because
Wait, it's a deck. is
it's
that-
a deck, yeah,
Okay, got
it's a deck with, steps, handrail, flooring, a roof, so on and so forth. And I just, wanted to, for the record, know what is it they're planning on using. Now, in the world of historic preservation, if you're gonna put an addition on, and in particular with regards to our guidelines, they're allowed, additions are allowed. The historic preservation technique is to make sure that you construct the addition in a way that it reflects that it's something new, not something associated with the old structure that you're trying to preserve. And it would be nice for us to know what those materials are, so we can say that's the appropriate approach for that addition on an existing older home, like 1010 Massachusetts Avenue is. I'm not sure how it turned out that so many of the items or materials were not identified by the architect. It was just about every item that was listed as a finished material was good. Under to select and consult with general contractor for final decisions on materials. So personally, I would prefer to have the materials identified. But given the fact that there was a problem with the building permit and the work started, I would still like to have, for the record, what the materials are. But to give, I would like to recommend that we approve the CTA with the provision that the property owner will identify what the materials are. And let him proceed with his work, given the fact that, the building permit was issued by Brian without him realizing that the house was in the architectural preservation district and a candidate for review. So thoughts, observations, comments?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One is. That's, that everybody makes mistakes or whatever, but that definitely is on the town there, you know what I mean, like, in terms of. I think, my personal opinion on this is. If it doesn't involve demolition. And he's just adding a deck. Again, when our bylaw was crafted, it really. Its specification of materiality was very limited. And materiality of a new deck. It's hard to, I just don't think, I think we want this to be a bylaw that achieves, remains popular. Has a lot of town support, does not frighten homeowners. We have to keep things. We can't get down into in the weeds with stuff like this that a normal homeowner is gonna wanna do. That doesn't involve destroying the historic property. So yeah, so I guess I definitely agree with you about approving the CTA at this meeting, 100%. I don't even know that, we need to. I don't think we need to, I would do it unconditional, and then, if you wanna reach out to him and ask him what it is, go for it, but we don't really have a record to speak of in terms of, except for the minutes of these meetings, as far as what, that sort of thing, so. I guess is someone who really, we've seen the difference having this bylaw makes for protecting. Historic structures from demolition. And I just want to keep it, I think that doing additional things, like in terms of. Materiality. And, materiality or. Maximizing the historic character appearance. That are beyond the basics. Of the preservation district bylaw, I think. We're gonna have to wait until we have some of those carrots before we can really. have much say in those. Otherwise, I think, the really valuable tool we have for protecting the district is gonna be at risk of just people getting fed up with it because of stuff like this. And this kind of stuff where, people go to the building inspector and they say, go ahead and have to stop. This is the kind of stuff that, drives people nuts. Especially regular homeowners who have limited time and limited, well, something I'll speak for the homeowner, but a lot of us have pretty tight budgets and whatnot, so. I don't think we wanna end up connected with those thoughts they have in those situations, I want us to be connected with stop the developer from knocking down the beautiful historic home, not the, screwed up my home improvement project.
Richard? Any thoughts?
Makes sense what Nathan said, but I think it's still, just as a matter of being an overseeing body with, we have design, we have the ability to have an opinion on design according to the bylaw. Knowing what materials are, I don't think it's burdensome to the homeowner to have that information for us. Just so we know what's going on in the district. I think there's from my years as chair, from the founding of the rules and regulations, there's been a tendency for things to be lax rather than more lax than, I'm not saying to be strict, and we weren't strict, just to be fair, but to be there. You know what I mean? That we do have a presence and we are allowed to have an opinion on and an understanding of what materials and design are going to be, as an opinion rather, not as a regulation. And I think we should exercise that part of the bylaw.
I'm disappointed that, like, once again, going back to how historic preservation is supposed to be done with regards to identifying what's old and what's new. And this is I'm gonna, like, there's one detail here where on the new addition, it's deciding to match existing. And that's not the way you do historic preservation. The way you do historic preservation is that you say, this addition is something different, it's something new, it's not what 1010 Massachusetts Avenue was.
I get it from an architectural approach, but I think that's adding a level of oversight and to the bylaw that nobody anticipates, especially with regard to that. This is not like.
But it's in the bylaw. But
No,
it is in the bylaw.
No, you're talking about a specific, architectural design interpretation of historical preservation, which I think is nobody is signed up for. So it's great that you got the background in that. It's a valid way of doing historical preservation. It will completely piss off the people we need to support this bylaw.
Well, then we shouldn't have a bylaw.
Well, no, we have a bylaw. It's just not as,
The bylaw.
it's not as textbook as what.
The bylaw references standards that, under those standards, would say the architect should not have.
Now, there's nothing in the bylaw about distinguishing the addition to not, that's, if it's not historical, to make it, significantly different, so you can tell the difference, like. No, there's nothing in the bylaw like that.
Yeah, there is, Richard, or there is, Nathan. The bylaw talks about the standards, National Park standards for historic preservation. It's in the guidelines,
The guidelines aren't the bylaw.
Yeah,
So-
the guidelines aren't the bylaw, but but the
And I would
bylaws,
argue that if it is in the guidelines, they're inconsistent with the bylaw
The-
and shouldn't have been approved.
but they were, and we just revised the guidelines. So, all right, so let's move on, because I'm gonna make the motion, because I want us to approve 1010 Massachusetts Avenue with the provision that we get details on the materials that are gonna be used in the addition. And, so I will make that motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
Alright, so discussion. Yeah, just make it clear that it's point information, it's not. The conditionality is on receiving the information, there's no additional. Determination once you receive the information, like, provided he could say he's gonna make it out of Play-Doh. And, you know, obviously, that's not gonna be the case, that wouldn't pass the building inspection, the regular, building permitting process, but. Yeah,
I think, all right, so that's the motion. That's been.
well, no, I
seconded.
need to understand, that's your intent, or?
My intent is that, upon delivery of the information on the materials, then the CTA is approved. If he doesn't deliver the material, what materials they're gonna use, then the CTA is not approved.
Okay, regardless, so if he delivers the materials, regardless of what they are, it's approved.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my point, just make sure that everyone understands that.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so that's passed. Okay, I think one of the key issues here is that we've got to get people engaged with us before they start this work. Because first of all, it costs him an extra $65 and that he didn't need to pay for. If he had read the new design guideline standards, he would have realized that he could have come in with the determination of applicability and not had to have submitted a CTA. The issues associated with the addition, I think, are fairly clear in the guidelines. He can proceed with an addition. And we wouldn't necessarily move into binding review just because he wants to do an addition. There's no grounds for that. But we then could have had a discussion with the property owner about how to make the addition be more complementary of being attached to a house that's very old. And, the intent here is to have, the flavor and the feel of historically preserved houses, that have evolved with some modernity. And that's not happening because we don't ask the homeowners to engage with us to tell them how to do that. The guidelines describe those things. The bylaw describes those things. The guidelines go into more detail. The other thing that I find rather frustrating is that I don't think the architect understands how to do historic preservation, this architect in particular. Because had he understood those things, there would be certain techniques he would have used that would have said, the house, 110 Massachusetts Avenue, is better preserved. All right, so let's go on to old business. Preservation of the Brooks House. At the last meeting we had, Nathan, you had some ideas that you wanted us to use or to pursue for the Brooks House. Done any additional work on that?
I've not done additional work, I need to do that.
Okay. Richard, status 763 Mass Avenue. Have you got any response back from the current property owner?
No, they're in violation of the family play bylaw because they haven't filed a report. What they're doing to preserve the house. The for sale sign is gone from in front of it. I don't know what that means. And I don't know if the person that was interested in purchasing and preserving the house has had contact with them. I haven't heard anything from him.
He did. When's your next historical commission?
We're in recess till September.
Okay. And you haven't had any info back from Brian?
I emailed him and he hasn't heard anything, but
Okay. All right, so then we're gonna keep that as an urban item. Status of town hall and road repair projects, I've already given you that. There's absolutely nothing happening, and we have to keep an eye on that one. Property notification. Here is, what I think is probably close to being the final version of the letter. Now, the attachment, I think we could probably discuss the attachment. But I would like to at least approve the letter. Because I want to start the process of figuring out how do we mail this to every property owner at that same architectural preservation district. Because I think that's key and essential, making sure people understand what's required. And the town staff doesn't understand what's required, let alone what the poor property owners are thinking about this bylaw. This is pretty close to what I submitted for your review last week. I made just a few grammatical changes, style changes. I was gonna give them the opportunity to contact us by email, suggested that in the last paragraph, I decided to take that out. What I really want is I want individuals who are thinking about doing a project that reach out and touch us before they contact an architect or a contractor. When you're ready to go on to the attachment, let me know. Okay, when I looked at. When I looked at doing the attachment, that was actually in the draft that I shared with you last week or last month. It said we would have an attachment. That would kind of identify some of the hot button issues.
I'm sorry, so this is, what's the audience for this document
Everybody who's a property
in the
in
APD?
APD.
And you're gonna like mail it to them or
Yeah,
something?
we're gonna do good old fashioned US mail. Because some of these people, you know, don't live in the district, not even close to being residents. But I almost chose not to have an attachment. Last month I said, oh, we'll do an attachment, and then I kind of had second thoughts. And I was like, you know, maybe what we ought to do is just say. Maybe emphasize more, we want you to come contact us before you start talking to a contractor or an architect. Because I think that issue is where we can do more for historic preservation of houses in the APD or structures in the APD than anything else. Because once a property owner reaches out to a contractor or to an architect, depending on what level of experience they have with historic preservation, we may be trying to push a rock up the hill. Whereas if we say, come talk to us, you know, we can tell you about all the things that, you know, that could enhance the historic value of your house. That may be a better way of doing it, rather than trying to give them some for examples.
Yeah, here's the thing, that so, am I correct in assuming, based on our conversation from May, I think it was, that we would like to expand the APDC?
Yeah.
And the primary reason for that is to prevent the demolition of historic structures.
That's not the only reason in my mind, but that was probably one of the primary reasons.
I would say, yeah, it's the primary reason, because you can't do anything with something that, you know, gone. If we want to do that, I think we do need to get the rewrite of the APD bylaw, and of course, make the guidelines reflect that new bylaw. We can't, and I don't think it's worth, my opinion is, we're gonna, at the time to expand it, we need to continue the streamlining we've been doing. I think we need to hew to the original intent of that bylaw. And we need to make it really clear, if we're gonna do things like what you're talking about with the windows and doors and materials, we need to do that with carrots, not sticks. And I think, you know, setting some, I don't think it makes sense, given that we'd like to bring that to the November town meeting. And, you know, I'll work on that for the August meeting, on first draft of what I would propose, and, you know, you guys, you know, I'll send it to you before that meeting, and we can review it and whatnot, because we gotta get moving on that if we're gonna get it in for November. I wouldn't send out anything getting people asking a lot of questions or getting worried about what changes they can make to their house. All of these, you know, yes, if you live in the district, there are things you can and can't do to your house. I think we need to clarify what they are and what that process is, because people really get their hackles up if they feel like they're gonna be too constrained. If you got windows, you know you've been needing to replace, and energy efficiency is on your mind, and you read this, you're going, oh no, this is gonna be even harder than just, you know, saving up the money and whatever.
I don't think this is controversial at all, it's just information. It says that your old windows can be as good as new windows. And according to most historic commission societies, Mass Historic, the old windows are equal or even better because of what they're made of. Vinyl windows and replacement windows aren't gonna last that long. They give, this is good information, roofing materials, if you have a stone roof, it's often more economical to do some repairs on it and have it last another 100 or 200 years than to get asphalt shingles and be replaced.
Sure. I do think there are some things here though, like the use of the words approved replacements, which suggests an approval process. I'm just saying, I think we wanna take another look at our bylaw, get on the same page with that. Especially, again, if you're gonna wanna extend things, then I think, you know, we're gonna have to let go of a certain amount of control, unless we add carrots, and then people might say, hey, I can get a 0% loan to help finance this. I just gotta, you know, work with the APDC on it or the historical commission on it, great, you know? But, you know,
Okay,
otherwise you get the.
one step at a time. Do we wanna send the letter out? And if we do we wanna send the letter out with an attachment? One step at a time.
I don't, because I don't want people coming to November town meeting, if we're gonna have a bylaw there. Thinking about. You know, oh shit, you know, there's someone, you know, controlling the details of my home improvement.
Happens every day when you apply for a building permit, Nathan.
Yeah, I get it, but beyond that, I mean, you know, another level beyond, yeah, I hear you.
Okay, so. We're not, now I'm gonna,
Well, but I would say though, I mean, based in light of this recent experience with this house,
we've had three since the guidelines have gone out, and all three. Were done differently than what the guidelines say,
three what have gone?
three requests for reviews. The one at 60 Main Street, guy puts, you know, he put a CTA together, and then I said, don't do that, just. Actually, he didn't, the guy at 60 Main Street, he said, I wanna do this work, Brian sent him to me, and I said, just submit the determination of applicability form. The house on Massachusetts Avenue, right down the street from us here. North of Main Street. He did submit a CTA that was not required. He could have done that with a determination of applicability because he said, I'm gonna replace it with light materials, you know.
Well, I mean, one thing we could do is just stop charging for the CTA.
I'm not gonna do that until, because the bylaw, the guidelines, which we just approved.
Yeah.
Say, this is how much you need to submit, and
The guidelines, though.
by the way, according to Brian. The amount that we estimated is incorrect, because he says the town needs to do 2 public notices. Not 1. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, because the person who's been submitting the request for advertisements of a public notice told me $40, 1 notification. Brian saying no. it's 2
Well,
notices.
in minimum, what we could say, in these cases where the CTA really wasn't required, we could refund the fee and say,
We have no authorization to refund the fee. I asked Ellen Griffin that question. She never responded.
okay, well, that's an update we should make, but. But as far as so, yeah, I mean, I think that's something we should take a look at, cause I think it's a natural point of confusion. Because they get these things going before they talk to the building inspector, before they talk to anyone from the town, basically.
Which is the reason why I think the notification letter is really critical.
Well,
No one's
assuming-
been told it.
And assuming people are gonna remember it and, you know, this and that. The thing is, so one thing though is, what might be good is if, when things do come across the building inspector's desk, is there any, is that public information? Like, could we get copied on like the list of building permits he gets in a day to at least, you know, so, you know, we'd be able to see, okay, that's in the architectural preservation district or whatever.
Because, and that's his job, to know what the architectural preservation district is, and to give us the appropriate building permits so that we don't have to go through a list of them.
Okay, well, yeah, okay, that's just like. Okay, so the question is like, how to, yeah,
Okay,
so I mean,
I'm gonna-
that didn't work on this last go around.
And in my experience, so I've been on the commission since 2016, and we've constantly had confusion about what's to be done.
What's to be done?
CTAs coming in like, Tony's describing, where people don't know what they have to do, they don't know that they're in the district
Right,
or they're feigning confusion. I've had that experience also.
sure, that's why I think ultimately, like, the building inspector needs to be the point of enforcement for this. Is it soon enough, idea?
He's the point of enforcement, but this clarifies in a simple way what people need to know, that, oh, we are in the district, that, I mean, this just describes that they're in the district and what they need to be aware of. So that it can be easy, for them.
Okay.
Oh, I should contact
Well,
them, I'm gonna put my
I
down.
mean, without the attachment, I think it's okay, alright? I'm not crazy about the attachment. I guess the other thing is, I just think, yeah, there has been confusion. If we're gonna change it in November, though, I'd be open to just, November's unfortunately very close. It's like 4 months from now. I'd say let's wait and do it after we make the modification. I'm not
Do what after?
notify folks about the new bylaw as opposed to like, you know, get people asking questions right before we're gonna make a significant revision.
Well, what questions are they gonna ask if they read this letter?
Well, if they read the bylaw, they might ask a lot. If they read this letter and read the bylaw, they might have a lot of questions.
Which would be good, then they don't get, stuck in a quagmire, we don't end up with a lot of confusion and CTAs that we have to return. Information that we're lacking, because they say, oh, I need to talk to them. So that I know I need to know what I need to do to make this a simple thing, which could be as simple as contacting us, we'll say, oh, you're changing like for like, you don't even need to fill out anything, you don't need to talk to us.
Yeah, I guess I would just say, if you wanna pass the thing in November, the expansion of this. Let's hold this off. How many CTAs are we gonna get between now and November, based on historical averages?
Nathan, I am a firm believer in clear communication. I'm also a firm believer that people who live in the town of Lunenburg live here because they enjoy the historic character. And I think that what the Architecture Preservation District Commission is about is trying to help the residents who want to do things with their house to do it in a way that it enhances the historic value of the home that they have. Historic preservation can create value, not just cause costs. And I think that the sooner we start communicating with the residents and the building owners about, you know, we're here, there's a bylaw, there's a reason why the bylaw was passed. It wasn't just to avoid demolition.
It was,
of
it was
houses.
mostly, yeah, it was
It-
mostly that.
It was also about, as I understand the history, it was also about the village district and making sure that as businesses were promoted within the village, that it would not lose the historic character that's currently present in the village district.
Yeah, the historic character, right, the historic character within some meaningful, but not overly restrictive guidelines, that's right.
The other thing is, we aren't really solving the demolition by neglect problem. I mean, the town's two buildings are undergoing demolition by neglect.
Well,
So like having the bylaw or not having the bylaw
It's
hasn't
not-
had any impact.
oh, that's bullshit, I'm sorry, that's not true. We do have power, as we know from our conversations, there's ways we can improve it. But it's not nothing.
All right,
And to say it's
so,
nothing.
so here's
Hold
what
on.
we're gonna do. I'm gonna entertain a motion to accept sending out the letter as soon as possible with the attachment. I'll look for a motion.
Like further discussion first.
All right.
So what you're saying to us about this and the, what are we doing for the, we're gonna have a warrant for the next town meeting?
Yeah, I'm not convinced that we could, but I think that given the amount of time and the current amount of confusion that exists with, I'm not sure when they're gonna ask for town warrants. Given the fluidity in the town manager position, is that gonna happen sooner? Is that gonna happen later? I don't know. But it would be relatively easy. Based on the current bylaw, to make the town the historic district, because it says in the current language of the bylaw. That this bylaw can apply to any district identified by the town. So all the bylaw would have to do, the only change we'd have to make with the bylaw is to say the town is now the district.
Yeah, however, if people feel that the way this bylaw is currently being enforced is problematic for homeowners, you're gonna have trouble passing that expansion, even if it is legally easy to do. Politically, it will be very difficult to do. I mean, the way this commission was approaching, with all the best intentions, enforcing this bylaw with the town itself, nearly got a movement to throw out this bylaw. And I don't wanna make that mistake again.
Actually, Ethan, what happened was that the people that showed up for the public meeting in November of 2022 voted for the Architecture Preservation District Commission, not against us. Just as I had suggested to the town manager not to have a vote taken. The select board basically called the question on how we approached the Ritter Building. And the end result was the townspeople voted in favor of us saying, hey, let's continue to look at these windows, not just to do what the town wanted.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's happened is that I think that, the sooner we have debate about what value historic preservation has for this thing known as the Architectural Preservation District or a broader district, the greater chance of success you'll have in embracing historic preservation. I think that for us to say, let's kind of keep it, under the radar till we get the bylaw passed to allow. for
I just
this.
don't,
I think that doesn't-
if you
that
send
doesn't
this
make any
out and
sense.
people have questions, we're gonna have to answer them, and we're gonna have to answer them based on the current bylaw, we could be talking about the other ones, I just think it's easier. Given the benefit of sending this out. Maybe we'll get 2 CTAs, maybe between now and November. The cost benefit here is.
You're looking at it from a perspective, what I wanna do. is
Yeah,
I-
I am.
You're looking at it from a perspective of just how many CTAs will we have between now and November? What I'm trying to do is to embrace the citizens who voted for this bylaw, to embrace the citizens, to say, we're here to help you if you want to do something to preserve the historic value of your home. And I think that, you know, the sooner we have that dialogue,
That is-
there's been no dialogue.
That's
The
not,
sooner we
that's
have
not
that
how
dialogue,
we're,
the
that's
better
not
off
how
we'll
we're
be.
gonna interpret it.
What?
First, yeah, I don't need, let's not even go,
Well, yeah.
the people who voted on this are, you know, voted for this are a few hundred people in town meeting. I think it's really seriously, I live in this district. So I care, I don't wanna lose this bylaw for any reason, and
So you're saying people that are in the district would vote against it?
I don't know what people in the district would do, I just don't wanna, right, you know, I don't think it makes sense to, engage in a big discussion, worst case scenario, get people concerned about it right now, and in my opinion, based on some of the wording here and some of the way this board has acted, they would have legitimate
Okay.
concerns as a
Then
homeowner.
I've given
And I
you
wanna be
all
able
the
to-
opportunity to rewrite, I have no pride of authorship. So Nathan, if you wanna rewrite this letter and rewrite the
I
attachments.
don't wanna send it
Be my
until
guest.
after, I wanna spend the time writing, updating the bylaw along the directions we've discussed. I'm not saying we'll agree on all of them, but we've agreed on some principles. We can get into the detail. I think that would include the expansion. Because to expand it, we're gonna have to make the case at town meeting that it's going to not be onerous for homeowners. The only, you know, that's it, which is the same thing we
How
have
would
to
you
do.
make it, how would you, like, first of all, I don't think it is onerous. I mean, I think if you look at the work that's been approved, that's come before the commission. It's all been, I think, pretty easy.
Tell that to the guy's deck who isn't done. Tell that to the guy whose deck isn't done right
Well,
now.
that's because he was misguided by town staff, Nathan, not because of something that we did or something that's in the bylaw. And had the staff understood, I mean, they were ready to start publishing public hearings because they haven't read the guidelines. I mean, that's, I think, the fundamental problem that we've had here, is that there hasn't been enough communication about what this
Well,
bylaw
Yeah,
means.
so I think we need to, you know, get that streamlined a bit, try to get like the CTA process, all that. Rewriting the bylaw gives us the opportunity to straighten stuff like that out or try to. And I would just propose,
What part of the bylaw are you gonna straighten out?
I have to look at it in more detail, Anthony, but in terms of like understanding, you know, when a CTA, when a public hearing gets scheduled and whatnot, like.
It's already pretty detailed, and the guidelines basically reiterate how that works. And I think we've actually improved that,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right that we've improved it.
but no one knows that.
Yeah, well, I'd say, we know, you know,
I'm not afraid of putting up a bylaw for historic preservation. That has been well managed by this commission. And I think that the commission has made significant progress in making it easier for people, you know, to get work done. What I don't wanna do is, I don't wanna miss an opportunity to help a homeowner do a better job of historic preservation on their house. Because they don't understand.
it's
what
not,
the
it's not
requirements are.
a,
I mean, I think you're fearful that the bylaw is gonna go out the window because we want people to have, you know, most of the folks that are willing to own a historic house, most of the people that have bought that historic house, bought it for a reason, not because, you know, it's a great value, or, I mean, they bought it because of what it represents. I mean, no one goes into a house that's 150 years old with their eyes closed.
no, I mean, people buy houses for different reasons, and most of the people who tend to live in them, I agree with you. Now, the folks who bought the home that's not in the district, the funeral home, you know, they bought it for other reasons.
It's not in the district.
I know it's not in the district,
So their objective is all about making money.
right? But
And we actually want to embrace them is by extending the district, which I'm not sure. I don't like spot zoning. I I would rather us say, hey, you know, let's change the bylaw to apply it to all of the town of Lunenburg. Because we have a lot of older historic homes that are gonna go by
So
the.
what I would say is, what I've seen from the APDC board, and again, I appreciate everybody's service, and I think it's great. Is in the reaction that it has provoked at times. Has concerned me in terms of the danger it is posed to public opinion turning against bylaw, because I was there and I knew how we had to craft it and position it to pass. I think that the way the guidelines have been written around historical value are at odds with the bylaw itself. I think there's, you know, I think there's. The actual wording of the bylaw may be ambiguous enough that I can understand how people landed there, but until we get that stuff straightened out, if people think they're gonna have to go through certain things. Again, the town is never, they like the historical value, but there's different levels of it, and there's, you know, there's a cost and benefit, and I think. We need to make sure we don't get past the public's pain point. Or we're gonna, again, lose something that I think is very important.
That part I don't disagree with. I mean, what I think is that we have to we have to engage them. You know, we have to engage the public. And I think that, you know, notifying them.
I'm fine with engaging them, so let's be clear about this. I'm just suggesting that we engage them
Okay, all right,
after November.
all right, so is there a motion to send a letter now, you know, with the attachment, without the attachment?
So
Is there a mo-
what is your?
My motion is-
Complaint about sending it now as opposed to after November.
I think the sooner we engage them, the better chance we'll have.
By the way,
If we getting the bylaw modified.
If we do get this, you know, we probably are gonna have to want, at least want to, if we even, or have to, I don't. If we're gonna get something on the warrant, it'll be good to do some public hearings around that, so I'd like to engage them around that rather than yesterday's news. I don't wanna educate them about something we're proposing to change, I wanna, you know, kind of keep it clean. If we are looking to make change.
Nathan, I think that the more information you can give a citizen, the better support you'll get from them. And I think that in them not being aware of the fact that we've made changes to the design guidelines, like, for example, the select board vice chair, when I went to talk about Richard's appointment, he wasn't even aware of the fact that we had changed the guidelines to make it easier for the residents, in spite of the fact that was given a copy of that.
Who was this?
The vice chair of the select board, Michael Ray Jeffries. You know, we engage people by sending them information. And I think that the sooner that you do that, well, I think the better chance you'll have of getting, you know, if we make the bylaw change and people go, I don't wanna do that because I heard those people are really hard to do business with. How do you negate that negative publicity? Whereas if we lean forward and say, hey, you know, we've made changes, you know, we're more likely to support your efforts to preserve your historic home. And we've made it easier for you to do that, then I think that gives us a better chance to make a bylaw change. Rather than going into the town meeting and saying, we're gonna change the bylaw, and they're gonna go, I've heard all these bad things about you.
So I have no problem sending them notifications about the public hearing, a public hearing for the warrant.
We had a public hearing for the design guidelines. We notified everybody of that. No one came in and said, I don't want you guys doing that. And remember, we had a requirement to do a public hearing for the design
But
guidelines.
at any rate, I think, you know, I don't agree with sending this out if we have a hope
All
of
right.
changing things.
All right.
November.
So there is,
Let me just go over this. This is just general information. I don't see anything controversial about this. General, the Architectural Preservation District guidelines list a number of general exclusions. So you don't have to, there's things you don't have to do if you own a house regarding windows and doors, roofing materials, street view, siding. That's just basic information. I don't see, I mean, I don't see somebody being stupid and saying, oh my God, look at all this here, I don't understand it. This is gonna make things difficult for me. And it explains what the commission is. If you own a building that's 75 years old, and you're contemplating a repair, maybe you wanna talk to the APDC and find out how easy it can be to go through the process, rather than making mistakes. And I don't see this interfering in town meeting, there's nothing controversial about this.
I think it takes a first step to saying, we're easy to work with. You know, whereas making a bylaw change without having that dialogue with them, I don't know where you would get the support for doing a bylaw.
We had a reputation as being confrontational. Radical, me being a radical for 6 years, 5 years. During the thing, I went before the select board. at least I kept getting this information. I went before the select board dozen times and spoke saying, we're here to facilitate the bylaw. We're working with the homeowners to do that. There's nothing radical that we are doing. I never had a complaint from a homeowner or anybody that applied for a CTA in the entire time I was chair. It just didn't happen, but the information, I kept getting this feedback that we were radical and interfering and making things difficult.
I mean,
And we
that
did
may-
it.
That may have been the,
3 of the people that wrote the guidelines, I facilitated the writing of the guidelines, I was chair. 3 people that wrote the guidelines lived in the district. They
Yeah.
weren't interested in making things hard for themselves by writing those guidelines.
I mean, I think the letter basically says, we want you to know about the bylaw, and we're here to make sure that you can proceed with your work. I don't see anything controversial about that. I think not saying that and then trying to make a change to the bylaw, I think that's the wrong way to proceed. I mean, I think we need to step forward and say, we want this to work, you know, and we're here to help you. You know, these are things that, you know, you can look at. You know, like Nathan, I bet you most people don't realize that they went out and bought a vinyl window with double pane glass is not much, the R value to that window is not much different than a single pane window that has a nice new storm window on it. And I think that a lot of people would be shocked by that detail. I think that that's the kind of information that we can bring to a homeowner that's contemplating changes to a historic house. Now, you gotta remember, there's a whole bunch of houses that live in the town of Lunenburg, including mine, that aren't 75 years old. You know, so this bylaw doesn't affect any of those people. It only affects people that
not
are.
yet.
No, the bylaw would remain the same, like. If
No,
it's,
I get it,
if it's
but
outside the
the time marches on and homes age, houses that are 74 years old today become 75 tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's another thing, the bylaw we might wanna look at changing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I think that is something that you know, we may end up, but by the same token, it doesn't mean that if a house turns from 74 to 75, you know, and say in August, then now we would expect a CTA. What we would say is, your house is now eligible for review, tell us what you wanna do. And in most cases, they're gonna say, I'm putting this on, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and we're gonna go, okay. Which is true for even the really old houses, like the one we just looked at tonight, 110 Massachusetts Avenue. That house is very old. And we're saying to them, it would have been nice to have a completed application with all the materials. And we might have been able to help you make that addition look better against your old historic home.
Right, so I think that part is fine as like I think we need to figure out how to incentivize people to get in that process of, you know, teach me about our values and when but it's not a process, you know, I don't think it's gonna be constructive if the way they enter that is because, I mean, there's a few issues, right? Like there's what we talked about, which is like, right now, they do their design and they go to the building inspector. So how do you get to people before they start with their
You
design?
gotta tell them they gotta do that.
Well, so you either have to have a punitive approach or you have to incentivize them that like, oh, if I do this, then I'm eligible for, you know, X, Y, or Z. Or, you know, you just need to really, maybe like you said, if people really want to know something, just don't, maybe there's things we have to do. We need a program, educational program, but to try to do it as part of the restrictive stuff, I think is gonna get us into trouble.
Education starts with that.
Yeah, I think I agree about educating the public, informing the public. It's just like, I just have concerns about doing it with the state of our. State of the bylaw right now.
I would actually like to have a few more instances where people come to us with a determination of applicability for doing work on their houses. Then we can say, see, this process isn't as onerous as some of you might think. And if we're thinking about extending it town-wide, that's the kind of information they're gonna need to have to vote for this. Is they're gonna have to understand that the process isn't that onerous. But they're not gonna
But
know
right
that.
now, I think it is.
It's not, Nathan. It's not only in certain select people's mind is it onerous.
Yeah, I mean,
What have we done in a year you've been on the?
I don't know, like,
What have you
I
done?
get nervous when you're talking about a guy is putting on a deck on a, modest historical home.
We approved that.
Yeah, we
We
approved,
approved it.
we did, but your preference would have been to have a conversation with him about.
Because we
The-
could create more historic value for his house.
If he,
And if he
wants,
says,
so my approach here is, if he wants to, we should be able to advertise to these people in the district, inform them, if they wanna, to create more historic value, or whatever, we're here to help them, that's great. But having that be in the midst of his death.
once again,
No, no, no,
that's all
no,
that
you
verse
know,
says.
having that be part of more of a speed bump for him in terms of doing his deck. That's where I think.
If he had had that letter. 2 months ago, I don't know when he applied for his building permit, but let's say it was within the last month. If he had
I think
if he had that letter 2 months ago, he would have saved $65. And he would have realized how easy this process would be. I don't see why saying to people, we're in business here to help you, is a bad thing to do.
Okay, I don't think we need to argue about this further, like, it's fine, I think we agree. That under the right circumstances, it's good, in general principle, it's good to communicate with folks, I think what you're communicating to them is important. And the timing of that communication can be important, and in this case, I just happen to disagree with you about this, I'm not gonna die on this hill, it's not the end of the world, it's just. My preference is someone, who's looking at possibly spending some time of getting that thing ready for town meeting. If I spend the time doing that, I want it to
All right, I'll
pass.
tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. I'll make it like the TV guy says. You bring your draft change to the
Okay.
town order to the bylaw,
Sure.
to the August meeting. And if it's a compelling reason, if the proposed changes are compelling, then we won't send them.
Until after the whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, I think, let's say we did change it, whatever. I think the way we would communicate, your intent, I think, good, having conversations to those who want to about opportunities to enhance historic value and. Make a better changes to their homes. Like, I think there's ways we can communicate that would be a little bit different, just be like, here's the guidelines, you gotta know about these, because this is where, like, if you. Knock down your house, or whatever, this is where we're gonna come after you. Here's the shit we don't care about, and here is. The things that, and here's just free services we're here to help you on, right? Like, those are kind of like the 3 buckets. And I think we can get that in order and communicate with them. I think it's subtle, but I think it makes a difference.
Okay,
You know what I'm
we
saying?
spent way too much time on the item. All right, so you're gonna bring
Yeah,
revised.
I think it's good, this is good, you're nailing me down to do it, and I think that's a good thing, and I need to do it, so.
Okay. Um,
And I'll try to send it out early, so I guess we can't get feedback outside of public meeting, but at least we could eat,
we can look at it.
you can look at it, yeah.
All right, the brochure. I think is still something we need to do, but once again, I was trying to keep this simple by sending out an approval letter saying, hey. Here's what we want you to do. All right, any update on 50 Main Street? I noticed.
I've reached out to one of the owners and, he hasn't responded yet,
Okay,
but I will.
I noticed they did a little landscaping in front, so that's always good.
Yeah, it's looking good overall, but yeah, so I'll keep on that and keep that on the agenda for August, please.
The landscaping's irrelevant, the steeple's been under demolition by Donald Gleck for 20 years and has lost. Most of its major components.
Yeah.
And architectural details.
Okay, next meeting will be the 8th of August. The second Thursday of the month. Anything else?
No, sounds good.
Okay,
That sounds good.
all right, so the meeting, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to
Second
adjourn.
that? All
I
in favor?
second.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
okay, we're adjourned.